Okay, well, why don't we get started? Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Michelle Rapp and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Career Strategy in Northeastern's Office of Alumni Relations. I'm very happy to have Jen and her colleague Amanda back by popular demand from previous webinars and master of the half-hour webinar, which I think is especially helpful. To get us started, I want to just tell you about Jen McDuffie's background. She started the Resume Chick & Co. to help anyone who wanted to further their education or career. She leads a team of writers and editors with the primary goal of consulting and collaborating for the client's success. As a certified professional resume writer, her mission is to help clients to engage, inform, and captivate readers by providing content that highlights their best endeavors on paper. Jen has an MS in Corporate and Organizational Communication, as well as a BS in Technical Communications from Northeastern. And also, just to let you know, you will be able to participate through the chat feature. If you click on the purple arrow on the bottom page and go to the bubble icon, that's where you'll be able to type in questions or comments for the discussion. So Jen, thank you so much, and Amanda, for being with us here today.
Thank you for having us. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us this afternoon. So we plan on spending about 30 minutes with you guys in conversation about artificial intelligence and applicant tracking systems and other features that you might encounter throughout your job hunt. Before we dive in, we wanted to share a little bit about us, in addition to what Michelle has already shared. We're a team of 7 comprised of resume writers, marketing, leadership, and business analytics. Our team is located across the country. We have one in Boston, ATL, Dallas, Jacksonville, right outside of LA and Orlando. And we're really excited to share our information that we have with you guys. So a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started.
Sure, so just to kind of jump in, we have you guys on mute just to minimize any background noise. But if you need us, like Michelle said, you can use that I am window or even the raise your hand feature. If you have questions, we will have a few minutes at the end of the presentation to answer those. But if you're not comfortable asking in this forum, we do have our email address listed, and you can send us any additional questions. And just like Michelle said as well, the session is interactive. We don't want you to sit through a boring meeting, and we don't want to sit through one either. So listen out for opportunities to respond, interact, and certainly a chance to win some prizes. All right, so here's the scoop. We spent a ton of hours researching AI and ATS, so much so that we think that we're exceptionally versed on the topics. Our mission for the webinar is to trim down all the fat and give you the information that you will need to make you guys lean job hunting machines.
So we talked about 7 tips in the beginning, but you'll definitely be getting more, some tips and tricks on how to configure your resume for the job hunt, some do's and don'ts, and some general information along the way. Let's just jump in and get started with the basics. So we're talking about the robots, right? The applicant tracking software. What is it? So to a recruiter, of course, it's a place to house all the applicants and find the ones best suited for the job. To an applicant, it's a system that they have to overcome to talk to a recruiter. The system has all types of capabilities for testing, social media analysis, personal analytics, and various others. The purpose of the tool is to discover skills a candidate might have that will benefit the company now and, of course, in the long term. What does that mean for you as an applicant?
So keep in mind that 98% of Fortune 500 companies use the applicant tracking system. Now, with that being said, 75% of applicants are screened out. So when you go to apply for a job online, your resume will likely get pushed through one of these applicant tracking systems. It will be scanned for keywords, minimum qualifications, job titles, locations, and other custom configurations, things like salary preference, social presence, and track record. Now, if you pass, you're going to end up, or your resume is going to end up in an inbox or a work queue, and your resume will get scored. So consider it like you're in a class with a bunch of your peers, and you're all being ranked and scored from highest grade to least. So if the recruiter does find you as a good fit, they move on to the next phase. This could be an assessment or aptitude test, a video or robot interview, a phone interview, or even calling you in for a person interview. So I just wanted to kind of take a moment to put this into perspective. Now, these major corporations, they receive 50,000 to 75,000 resumes per week. Each job posting draws an average of 250 applicants, but only 2% will end up getting interviews.
So really quick, pop quiz. There's one of the answers that we didn't say, but it was on the page for you to read. In order for you to get the prize, you have to answer both parts of the question correctly. So how many resumes do large companies receive per week, and what is the most frequently used applicant tracking software? And you can use your IM feature to give us the answer. Anyone want to take a shot? Sure thing. So we'll repeat the question for you. How many resumes do large companies receive on a weekly basis? And what is the most frequently used applicant tracking software? So it's actually 50,000 to 75,000 resumes per week, and the most frequently used ATS is Taleo. Good job. We'll get it on the next one. We have a couple of the pop quizzes for you guys to earn prizes. So not getting interview callbacks, here's why. Most applicants are saying, if I can just talk to someone, they'll love me and they'll hire me and they'll want to keep me around forever. Unfortunately, you can't talk to anyone until you get past the filter, and here are some reasons that you might not be hearing from recruiters. Your contact information. I actually had a potential client come to me and saying that she wasn't getting any interviews and asked if we could help her. Part of our process is to start with the contact information and making sure that it's all accurate. And lo and behold, her phone number was incorrect. So just make sure, it might seem minor, but one digit in your phone number, one digit in your email, that could really have an effect and impact on whether or not you're getting callbacks or emails. Also, is your contact information in your header? So in Word, of course, you have the option of opening the header, typing in whatever your name, phone number, email, and so on and so forth. But that could actually interrupt the scanning process on some of the applicant tracking systems, and your resume might get tossed for not having contact information on it.
So then we're going to ask, is your resume really a match? So does your resume match the job that you're applying for? And we ask that just because we work with a number of clients that may be switching careers. Are you highlighting the skills that that job is looking for? So we always want to make sure that your resume is lined up with the actual job posting. Now, of course, we watch on social media, and we just want to ask, is your Facebook profile job hunt ready? What do I mean by that? Do you have an appropriate photo? What content are you reposting? What content are you being tagged in? And we ask you these questions just because scanners and recruiters are going to be looking for behaviors that fit in their organization or avoid behaviors that don't fit. Now, another thing we want to keep in mind is the format that you're submitting your resume. Now, of course, online there's the copy and paste, tag your link, your resume format. It might be in a PDF version. Now, a PDF version is essentially a photo. Some ATS systems, they can't scan the PDF properly in order to pull out those keywords. So be careful with submitting your resume that way.
That's a good point. So jumping down to minimum qualifications, most postings will have this minimum qualification. You need to have a bachelor's or you need to have a master's. You'll need to have a certain certification, so on and so forth. And so we're asking them, do you have the education required, the years of experience required, the key competencies required, technology skills, and so on. And most importantly, does your resume actually reflect that you have the minimum qualifications? Let's be clear, so there's no magic trick to beating the applicant tracking system, but we like to say if you can't beat them, then join them. So we're going to give you a couple of tips. So now that we've given some insight into some reasons you might not be getting a callback, let's dive into some tips that have worked for a bunch of our clients and thousands of other people. First, be honest. Before applying, ask yourself, can you actually do the job? Because believe it or not, that's the same question that recruiters want answered, along with, are you a good fit for the role? We bring up this point because if you're honest about your knowledge, skills, and abilities, it will translate into an honest resume. And you'll be able to more easily find a position that matches your skill set versus struggling through the job hunt process.
Our next tip, don't use templates and be careful with tables. Now, of course, templates, they're aesthetically pleasing. I mean, they look great and they're an easy tool to craft your resume. However, these templates may confuse the applicant tracking systems. We've had clients send us their templated resume and this was the result. So on the screen, you can see that vertically, the title professional strengths is on the side. Areas of expertise and leadership expertise, they're overlapping. So this is what the computer is going to see. So do you remember earlier when we talked about using your contact information in your header? Well, this again is another example. The client's resume that we're showing here, their contact information is actually in their header, but when you open it, you don't see that. So you don't see any of the name or contact information. So that's kind of what we're talking about earlier. Now, another tip is always keep it simple. You want your resume to have you want it to be easy to read and the headings to be as simple as possible. So just remember, you're dealing with technology. So a human, right, might understand what you mean by professional experience, but the computer only understands and is looking for the heading work experience. So you always want to make sure you include the 5 major parts of the resume. Of course, the contact information, your skills, work experience, education, and professional summary.
And make sure you label it exactly like that. I actually have a question for you, Amanda. What are some really creative or fancy ways that you've seen education noted on a resume?
Oh, wow. So we've seen a lot of creativity, higher learning accomplishments, academic highlights, I mean, even educational pursuits. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, they're a great way to say those things to a person, but again, that will just confuse the applicant tracking system.
I agree. A couple more tips for you. Use common fonts. I know Mac users and, PC users, we have different fonts and some of those things might not actually transfer. So we like to say stick to the normal. Arial, Times New Roman, Calibri, those are our favorites and they rarely get kicked back. Keywords are important. So this next one is important to me because the intent of using keywords is to show that you have experience related to a position. That said, do not keyword stuff your resume. I bring this up because a few years ago, a friend of mine called and asked, what about making the entire job posting white to blend in with the background and then shrinking the words so that the recruiter won't notice that the entire job posting is in there. I thought, whose idea was this? If I shared, if you basically put that much creativity and innovation into creating a resume that speaks to your skills, you'll have a better chance of getting an interview instead of trying to bypass the system. So in other words, to be short, applicant tracking systems can pick up on entire job postings in your resume and it will end up in the trash. Instead, in the job posting, look for your core competencies like communication, leadership, relationship building, technical expertise, and so on, and use that to tell a story of how you've demonstrated those skills. Also, make sure to include keywords from the job posting, things that appear more than once. The job title, of course, like I said, core competencies. And we actually have a slide later on that will give you a couple of resources to help you with some keywords. We always like to say, write like a human. So some people love the thesaurus, but just don't get carried away. And also, don't shy away from your achievements. Some folks like to downplay the great work that they've done, and we like to say, if you have content. Amanda's going to touch base on number 7 in more detail. She's our LinkedIn guru. But I wanted to mention the LinkedIn URL. Make sure that you have it on your resume because now applicant tracking software can scan your resume and your LinkedIn profile simultaneously. And you'll have a better chance of speaking to a recruiter if they can see that your LinkedIn profile is done your skills are there, and you're showing some sort of an interest in basically networking or using LinkedIn to your advantage. So give me 1 second. So this is a slide I mentioned earlier about the additional resources. We like to use JobScan. That basically talks about, it gives you keywords and recommendations on which ones to use in your resume. The resume discovery type, that tells you which resume would be best to use for your experience and industry. ResScore is a favorite. It analyzes your resume and tells you which industry it's geared towards. So if you're a pilot and your resume is geared towards administrative, that might not be. You might need to reword some things to make sure that it's showing your technical abilities and so. And also Grammarly. If we back up to the other slide, we can actually show you where this individual had multiple misspellings, and that is a turnoff to recruiters. So use Grammarly. It never hurts to have a second set of eyes or second computer reviewing your resume. And of course, the Resume Chick team, we can also help.
All right, for another pop quiz. So we'll try this again. We are going to ask that you, I would identify 2 things that you should stay away from that can kick your resume out of the ATS. So again, we're gonna ask for 2 of the things that you should stay away from. So we'll give you guys just a moment.
Give you a hint. One of them will have your resume jumbled. Great, Sarah. Thank you. Keyword stuffing. I like it, Lacey. Templates, hard to read fonts is great. You guys all get prizes. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, guys.
If you don't mind, just drop us your email in a private message and we'll get that over to you.
Awesome, you guys.
Right, so I'm going to jump to the next slide. That's me.
Okay, so I want to take a little bit of time to talk about your LinkedIn, and here's why. I'm going to ask you guys to participate if you'd like. What is the first thing that you do when you don't know something? So just we don't have any clue about it. What do you do to find out more information? Give me just a second. Google it. Absolutely. That was absolutely right. So think of it this way. LinkedIn is the recruiter's Google. So if we're wanting to learn more about an applicant, we're going to go online and try to get a better idea of who this person is. Do they fit our culture? And fine, like Jen said earlier, because applicant tracking systems are simultaneously scanning your LinkedIn, we want to make sure that you have the best representation of your brand. So I'm going to give you a few tips here just to make sure that your LinkedIn conveys the best online you and really optimize it for search success. So let's take it from the top. I'm going to kind of use the visual, so if you'd like to follow along with me. We always encourage you to customize your background. So the background is the banner behind your professional photo, and this is the first thing that visitors are going to see. It's going to give you a chance to share a little bit about your personality and the work you do, and it shows that you actually care about your profile. So if you can notice here, Jen's background is colorful, it's geared towards resumes, and it even has a fun quote. Now, we always encourage you to include a professional photo, and here's why. Including a photo makes your profile 14 times more likely to be viewed. So we definitely want to make sure that you have that photo there, it's professional, and that it's geared towards your line of work. When you don't have a photo, the profile may look incomplete or even fake. So as you can see with Jen's photo, she has a nice photo here without any background distractions. She's forward facing, and she's someone you definitely would want to work with. So next I want to talk about your headline. So Jen's headline here says Director of Resume Awesomeness, Editor Extraordinaire, Career Consultant. So you always want to use this as a value proposition. This is, again, a chance to grab the attention of others, to kind of have something unique, catchy, appealing, but it really shows what you bring to the table. So, hey, Jen can offer, resume help, editing, and career consulting. We kind of know what she has to offer. Now, another thing that we would like to always encourage is for you to capitalize on your professional summary. So this is going to be right in the About section. It's actually kind of gives you more space to have a full paragraph. So you can't quite see Jen's fully, but this is going to be an area where you're able to tell a story about yourself professionally and personally. This is another great place to leverage industry keywords so that you're coming up on those searches. But this again is a way to just paint your story and tell a little bit more about yourself. So kind of briefly running through the next few, your work experience is going to look similar to your resume. You're not going to want to copy and paste, but this is going to be a section where you can really show your results. So what did you accomplish and how did you do it? Tell us the story behind that. Now your skill section, and this is an awesome section to capitalize on. I always advise you that a healthy skill section should have between 30 and 50 skills, which is the maximum. You're able to highlight the kind of top 3 and emphasize it on your profile. But what's great is that others can go and endorse those skills. So basically to back you up that you do have those skills. So for example, if you connect with us and you say, hey, Jen and her team really know what they're talking about, you'll endorse our certified professional resume skill. And of course, hashtags are something that we just can't get away from in today's society. But what's great is that you use these hashtags, the keywords with the pound sign, just basically to make information a little bit more discoverable for you on your page. Those related hashtags will prompt posts and allow you to connect with others. So for example, some that we would use would be hashtag career consultants, hashtag resume tips. Always encourage you to join groups of interest as well. This allows you to connect with your peers and to ensure you don't miss a great job posting in the industry. And the last one I really want to touch on is going to be a recruiter setting. Now, this isn't something that you'd be able to see. So, for example, looking at Jen's profile, this isn't going to be something that you would see, but on your settings side, you can actually there's a setting that will let recruiters reach out to you. So, hey, I'm in the market. Here are the type of jobs I'm looking for. It'll even allow you to select a location. So maybe you want to work, less than 45 minutes away from your home. So it's a great way to have those recruiters reach out to you.
Thank you. That was a great job.
I know that was a lot.
Great job. Okay, so the other stuff that has to do with applicant tracking software and artificial intelligence, now we're moving towards recruitment chatbots. And this is just a capture of a conversation between a robot and a human, and basically trying to get information on a certain position. I'll show you that I went on southwest.com to check out something for a client, and the chatbot jumped out at me instantly. It didn't wait 2 seconds before it asked me if I needed help. So I decided to, play with that, engage with it, and it discovered that it could tell me what positions were available, locations, and next steps for applying. So I get the idea as to why recruiters like to call them personal recruiting assistants, because they're always fielding questions and saving recruiters time. They can schedule interviews, like I said, screen applications, and they can answer general questions about job postings. So that's just one thing that you might run into. Social media presence, that's a big deal. Remember that recruiters are using every means necessary to find the right candidate. They're not just on LinkedIn, they're not just on Facebook, they're everywhere. They're hitting social media networks and scanning for good and bad behaviors. They're scanning for criminal activity, among others. And actually, only 4% of recruiters do not use social media.
Wow.
4% don't use social media. So that's a pretty big deal.
So we want to talk a little bit about personality traits and how AI can kind of pick those things up. So of course, during the application process, once you say, hey, this might be a great fit, the recruiter may give you a personality aptitude test. So this is going to streamline the recruiting process and kind of get an idea of if you would be a good fit for the position. So for example, a retailer may use that aptitude test to test for honesty if you're going to be handling cash, or maybe a social skill kind of setting if you're going to be working in a sales environment. So those personality tests, that's something that's very common. It's actually a $400 million industry these days.
Wow.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to talk about as well would be Google Voice. So, have you ever received a text message from a recruiter? I know I was surprised when I received one, and at first it seemed a little bit strange, just because I don't know, I think about text and I think about friends, right? Well, these employers will use Google Voice and other applications like Text Recruit to reach out again to schedule and to make sure that they're reaching you for an instant communication. Now, on the applicant side, another way that you can use Google Voice is that if you create a kind of specific phone number, you can use that publicly online. So we might not always want to share our phone number online, but this number you will kind of use for your job search process. So when you get phone calls or texts to that number, you know it's job related. So that's a great tip that we offer and something that you can even put on your LinkedIn.
We love that tip. I mean, no one would think to even use a Google Voice account
Yeah.
for that. So it's so creative. All right. Am I frozen? Here we go. Pop quiz. And this is the last of them. So, how much more likely are you to get an interview with a professional photo on LinkedIn? Let's see who is paying attention. 14 times. Thank you,
That's
Eduardo.
it.
And one more. List 2 of the 3 functionalities mentioned by chatbots. Two of the 3 functionalities mentioned by chatbots. I'm waiting on 2. I see 2 people typing. Okay. That's right, Michelle. Close. So far we have 1 for the chatbot. So I'll go over them really quickly. They can schedule interviews, they can screen applications, and they can answer general questions related to job postings. All right, you guys, so we've dumped a ton of information on you, and it looked like we have a few minutes for questions. Use the IM feature and let us know what questions you have. And if you're not comfortable asking in this setting, we're going to go ahead and put our information in the IM so that you can have access to it. Just give us 1 second. Also, here are all the links that we mentioned. So JobScan, the resume type analysis, Grammarly, ResScore, and of course we put the resume check in there. So Arlene asked, once you get through the applicant tracking system or AI, do you recommend following up with a paper copy of the resume? No, we don't. We actually say when you write your resume, write it in Word and then copy it to text. And if you need help, we can certainly show you how to do that later on if you don't know how to do it. Basically, it takes all the unnecessary characters out and then you copy and paste that into the job application online. That way it comes out when they print it, it looks plain. It'll say Arlene Sapinski, phone number, name, so on and so forth, all of your accomplishments, etc. You're welcome.
Excellent. And so now Sarah asked, do you recommend changing your resume for every new job you apply? Let's see, to use keywords with the job description. So here's what we recommend is that when you create your resume, you're going to have the story, your accomplishments, your results. Those things are going to stay the same. But what you're going to want to do is to tailor your resume to the job posting. So going back and like you mentioned, finding those keywords and kind of placing them in there to help tell that story and to make sure that you're a great fit. So while the main components of your resume, again, accomplishments and results will stay the same, you absolutely will want to tailor your resume to the job posting you're applying to. So that was a great question.
I'm going to tag on to that. Write like the job, this is going to sound weird, write your resume like the job description is written. So for instance, if the job posting says schedule interviews and you have scheduling in your resume, you might want to change schedule, since that might be a keyword, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Okay. And we have for formatting your resume for AI systems, what do you recommend for people in creative fields where the look of your resume is a factor? So Megan, typically when we write our resumes, we do them in, we can use a template. We're very careful to basically strip the template and bring it to text. So you can always upload your resume, and typically in creative fields, you're having someone look at your resume. It's not usually going through an applicant tracking system software that's stringent. And it just kind of depends, as a case by case situation, but we always say go with the text if you can, but use a PDF where they give you the option to use the PDF. Okay.
All right. And so then Sarah asked, if you recommend against using a PDF to submit your resume, what would be the preferred method? Many systems I see request file attachment or Dropbox. So that's an excellent question. And again, the reason why we don't want to use the PDF is just because it's a photo. Now, when you have those drop boxes and it's asking you to copy and paste, this is going to be where you use the text version. So that's kind of what we were talking about before in regards to, creating your document in Word so that you can always go back and edit it. And of course, you want to save that layout, but you can convert it to a text format. And so what that means is, again, we're taking out the tables, taking out any unnecessary characters will get jumbled, and it's just the text. So that way, when you have that drop-down box, you are able to copy and paste, and it's just the text. You are welcome.
Okay. And Arlene, we answered your question in the IM, and if you want to talk about that afterwards, we certainly can assist you. But Michelle?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were coming on to say something.
Oh, just getting ready for later.
Okay. Do you guys have any other questions? Well, if not, we gave you guys a ton of resources, and we really, our cover letter, well, one more question, our cover letter is still relevant. It depends. It depends. So we like to say, if you know the person that you're giving the cover letter to, you need to have a cover letter, or you know the person that you're going to be interviewing with, or someone specific. If a recruiter is specifically asking you for one, if the company is asking for one, then yes. I will admit that a lot of recruiters I've spoken to say that they skip right to the resume, but it is still a requirement for them, so they always ask that you have it. And we usually recommend it to our clients for that reason.
Well, Jen and Amanda, it's really lovely to have two presenters sharing their expertise in such a short amount of time. And I know I heard some new things today, and I hope everyone else did, and that we're all going to go back to our resumes and our LinkedIn profiles and make some of these changes while they're still fresh in our minds. Thank you both for making this so interesting and interactive, and this is truly valuable information to stay current with in the job search process. So thank you both for sharing your expertise and these great links. And thank you all for joining us and asking such great questions. As always, let me know if I can be helpful in your career process. You can find me in the Office of Alumni Relations. Thanks again to everyone for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at future webinars.
Thank you,
Michelle. Thank you, guys.